National Primary Healthcare Development Agency reveals 50,000 children in the Northeast are yet to receive polio vaccine. Trade Union Congress threatens strike over non-implementation of new minimum wage. In international news, Britain warns Iran of significant response to its seizure of oil tanker. And in sports, Super Eagles former coach Bonfrey Joe blasts Super Eagles' lack of tactics in the just concluded 2019 AFCON.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency has revealed the security challenges in some parts of Northeast is making it difficult for 50,000 children to be reached with wild polio vaccine. The agency's executive director, Faisal Shuaib, says this was the reason Chief of Army Staff Yusuf Buratai reactivated the Buratai initiative in Borno last month. He explained that the Theatre Command Buratai Initiative Force was a collaborative effort among the Army, NPHCDA, and Federal Ministry of Health. Shoaib says the initiative was to vaccinate children in the security-compromised areas and ensure they get the health services they required beyond the polio vaccine. Shoaib is hopeful in the next 2 to 3 months Nigeria would be certified a polio-free nation in spite of security challenges in some parts of the country. The federal government has denied any involvement in the ongoing trial of Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria. In a statement by Presidential Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity Garuba Shehu, says the government will no longer condone acts of violence from El-Zakzaky's followers. The Shiite leader is facing trial for alleged culpable homicide, unlawful assembly and disruption of public peace, among others. El-Zakzaky has been in custody since December 2015. IMN members have demanded his release, staging massive protests, sometimes resulting in clashes with the police. The latest was 2 weeks ago. A Kaduna State High Court has adjourned hearing the motion for an application by El-Zakzaky to seek medical attention in India. The Trade Union Congress has threatened to go on strike again, and this time over the non-implementation of the 30,000 new minimum wage. The union says it is strange that the minimum wage has not been implemented 3 months after it became law. The union accused federal government of not showing enough commitments to the wage. TUC President Comrade Quadri Olaleye said the entire process transparency. He urged the federal government to act quickly and directed to representatives to return to the negotiating table with a more realistic mandate that would be beneficial to workers who have waited for almost a decade to get a pay rise. The Transmission Company of Nigeria has suspended Kano Electricity Distribution Company from the operator-administered markets. CCN says KEDCO failed to increase its security cover in accordance with market rules. The transmission company says intake of KEDCO from the grid had been restricted through a disconnection order to the transmission service provider, as some facilities would be disconnected. Meanwhile, the federal government is expected to sign an agreement with German-based Siemens AG on an electrification roadmap to address the nation's power crisis. Last month, Presidential Chief of Staff Abakari met with power distribution companies and other stakeholders in the power sector to examine projects which the German government could help. Siemens Global Chief Executive Officer Joe Kaisa will be in Nigeria to sign a letter of agreement on the roadmap. This project is similar to Egypt's mega project and Iraq's electrification project recently awarded to Siemens. Nigeria's First Lady Aisha Buhari has joined right groups, Amnesty International and other Nigerian celebrities on Sunday to condemn the invasion of singer Dakolo's Lagos home in connection with wife's rape allegation against Reverend Biodun Fatoyinbo, founder of Commonwealth of Assembly, COSA. Policemen from the Special Tactical Squad in the office of the Inspector General of Police Muhammadu Adamu stopped the Dakolos home on Saturday evening, allegedly to serve the Dakolos with police invitation letter. Fatoyinbo has denied the allegations, but there was outrage over the invasion. Many were wondering what happened to the case filed by the accuser in Lagos in June. Reacting to the incident on its official Twitter handle, Amnesty International says intimidating victims of sexual abuse with the use of the police was a new low in the country's cases of impunity. Ogun State Commander of the Federal Road Safety Corps has disclosed on Sunday that there would be a temporary closure of inward lanes on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to enable the rehabilitation of section of the road. Route Commander and Public Education Officer Florence Okwe says the rehabilitation work would initially 600 meters of the corridor. The command has urged motorists to allow more time for their travels or use alternative routes. Coming up, African stories. African Union calls for international action on DRC Ebola. And later, international news. Britain warns Iran of significant response to a seizure of oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Last week, the World Health Organization declared the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo as an international health emergency. Now, the African Union is calling for international action to stem the spread of the outbreak.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has been battling the worst Ebola outbreak in its history. The provinces of North Kivu and Ituri have borne most of the brunt of the outbreak. But as reports of cases emerged in Uganda, fear of the disease spread rose. On July 17th, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global health emergency. Despite raising the threat level, John Kengasong, the director of the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, remains optimistic.
The current disease outbreak in Democratic Republic of Congo is the second largest Ebola outbreak in the history of Ebola. Interestingly, about 700 confirmed cases have been cured. So this is very good news. So it means Ebola is not a death sentence, that we still have chances of surviving.
By raising the threat level, the WHO looks to galvanize support, as well as increase the funds available to support the current operations.
The outbreak is serious, unusual, unexpected, and is spreading, and carries implications for public health beyond the affected state national borders and require international action. The African Union, through the Africa CDC, has been supporting the response in renewing its commitment to supporting the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
The WHO's PHEIC emergency provision is the highest alarm the body can sound and has only been used 4 times previously. Community mistrust as well as instability have challenged efforts to stop the outbreak.
Meanwhile, human traffic activity has continued to increase on the Ugandan border with the DRC as Congolese citizens express concern over the declaration by the World Health Organization that Ebola situation is an international public health emergency. Daniel Arap Moy reports on how the Ugandan government is struggling to cope with the influx of Congolese into its borders.
As the first case of Ebola is confirmed in Goma, the Democratic Republic of Congo's most populated city to see Ebola yet, the Uganda government and relief agencies are on the ground working in refugee reception centers in Changwali and health facilities to sensitize refugees on how to recognize Ebola symptoms and safely triage and transfer suspected cases to Ebola treatment centers.
If you don't know, you find somebody just dead instantly and you don't know what the person died of, it's not good for you to bury that person yourself. Go to the health facility, They will help you out, come with somebody trained to bury the person, and they will bury the person instead of you contracting the disease from there.
Uganda is currently mobilizing the new arrivals from Congo's restive Ituri province using communication strategies that include interpersonal communication, community engagement and capacity building in order to contain the deadly Ebola virus. With the current threats of Ebola, officials are trying to sensitize the refugees, especially those coming in from the Democratic Republic of Congo, on how Ebola is spread and how it can be prevented. Trained health teams are currently mandated to conduct a range of activities to provoke engagement among the refugees regarding Ebola preparedness, prevention and control.
There are digital thermometers which read their temperatures. So we screen for Ebola for the new arrivals, and we monitor them for 21 days. So that's how we do our screening for Ebola.
Though the spread of the disease to Goma is a sign that the response still has work to do in gaining the trust of the local population, Uganda has made progress to reset and reevaluate the response strategy to effectively deal with the Ebola threat.
South Africa is doing well in the manufacture of leisure boats. It is actually locking horns with the best of them around the world, including France. And now, considering the profitability of the industry in the South Africa economic milieu, the sector is seeking cash injection closer to home. Travis Andrews reports.
As the world's second largest manufacturer of luxury sailing catamarans, South Africa has a thriving boat building sector, which contributes positively to the local economy. It also contributes to the ocean's economy through employment opportunities, and with over 7,000 direct jobs and a positive trade balance of over $75 million annually, it's managed to create a new crop of artisans, designers and engineers.
They go out, reach out into the communities of around here, bring the unemployed, train them, and work together closer with the TVET colleges. So this, I believe, as government, we need to come closer. The one other thing that I believe we should be able to do is to work with the Department of Higher Education in terms of research and development of their products, but also develop a curriculum with respect to shipbuilding.
But the sector remains largely untransformed within the ownership structures, and through partnerships with various government departments, it's hoping to broaden participation in the industry. Black investors have focused on other sectors, including tapping into lucrative mining commodities, but the boat building industry is hoping to lure them to the seas.
We need transformation, and the only way the sector is going to grow in South Africa is if we have more people getting involved, and we need new people, we need new investment. So we need black capital to get involved and understand, first of all, understand the industry, understand boats and yachting. It's been predominantly a white sport of sailing and cruising, and we want to change that.
And the capacity and skills to do that is there, with Cape Town catamaran builder Robertson & Kane only behind the French with total global output, but it, like many, can boost capacity through new investments. For South Africa to overtake France as the #1 constructor of catamaran yachts in the world, it would need that capital injection. And the Department of Transport is hoping it could assist the sector, because job creation is one of its ultimate goals.
This is one of the industries which is growing and growing very fast. But as government, what we need to do is to work very close to each other, partner with the industry.
For now, though, it remains to be seen if black industrialists may be tempted of venturing into an unfamiliar market. But South Africa is a seafaring nation which builds boats that are not only in high demand around the globe, but also quite profitable as well.
When we return, international news. Britain warns Iran of significant response to its seizure of oil tanker in the Straits of Hormuz. And later, sport. Bonfrejo blasts Super Eagles over poor AFCON outing.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. British officials are drawing up plans to hit Iran with sanctions for seizing a British-flagged oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. They say European Union countries may be urged to reimpose sanctions that were lifted in 2016 as part of Tehran's agreements to curb its nuclear program. The British government is under strong pressure from lawmakers to act decisively in the sharply escalating diplomatic quarrel between the two countries. But there's growing domestic criticism in the House of Commons about the lack of naval protection for British tankers in the Strait. The outgoing British Prime Minister Theresa May is being blamed by some parliamentarians and military officials for failing to agree to a system of joint naval patrols among the US, Britain and other European navies. The crew of the British registered ship is made up of Indian, Latvian, Filipino and Russian members. Police used tear gas to break up a group of 100,000 Hong Kong protesters who had targeted China's liaison office over the weekend. Official Chinese daily newspaper said in a front-page commentary, the central authority cannot be challenged and called the protesters' demonstrations intolerable. The demonstrators were demanding for democracy and an investigation into the use of force by police to disperse crowds at earlier protests. Police launched tear gas to disperse the protesters. Later, protesters trying to return home were attacked inside a train station by assailants who appeared to target the pro-democracy demonstrators. The attack on the liaison office touched a raw nerve in China. China's national emblem, which hangs on the front of the building, was splattered with black ink. It was replaced by a new one within hours. Police said on their official social media accounts the protesters threw bricks and petrol bombs at them and attacked the central police station. The one country, two systems framework allows Hong Kong to maintain a fair amount of autonomy in governing local affairs, but demonstrators fear the city's rights and freedoms are being eroded. Unusual sweltering heat is scorching parts of the U.S., with more of the same predicted for some days ahead. At least 6 deaths have been attributed to the unusually hot weather. As Toby Mills reports from Washington, D.C., many residents are heading to public pools or staying in air-conditioned spaces to weather the heat wave.
A large chunk of the U.S. is roasting as millions cope with record-setting temperatures and high humidity. The deaths of a handful of people have been blamed on the excessive heat. The National Weather Service is warning people to be smart and stay cool and keep out of the direct sunlight and remain hydrated. Stifling temperatures in some places are reaching as high as 46 degrees Celsius or about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. People are taking to the water to cool down. Public swimming pools are being kept open longer.
I think it's taking a toll on everybody because the heat along with the humidity is just really exhausting. You know, you can't be outside for very long without feeling extremely tired or just, it's very draining.
You see I got a sweat rag and keep a bottle of water. You know, just if you can, just stay cool, you know, just stay out of it if you can. But I'm coping really pretty good though.
See people walking around with umbrellas, which, you know, I don't really have any because I'm from Arizona, but seems like a good thing to do. Drink water.
It's another hot one here in Washington, D.C. Now, my cell phone tells me it's 34 degrees, but the real feel, what it actually feels like here on the ground is 41 degrees, and it's going to get a lot hotter later on today. This comes as the World Meteorological Organization reported that last month was the hottest June ever recorded. In some parts of Central and Western Europe, temperatures were 10 degrees Celsius above normal June temperatures. 9 of the 10 warmest Junes ever recorded have come since 2010. The sweltering heat wave in the US is expected to continue.
Panama has become the first Central American nation to ban single-use plastic bags to try to curb pollution on its beaches and help tackle what the United Nations has identified as one of the world's biggest environmental challenges. The country of 4 million citizens has joined more than 60 other countries that have totally or partially banned single-use plastic bags, including Chile and Colombia in the region. Supermarkets, pharmacies and retailers in Panama must stop using traditional polyethylene plastic bags immediately. while wholesale stores will have until 2020 to conform to the policy approved in 2018. Fines can be applied for non-compliance, but there are exceptions for the use of plastic bags for sanitary reasons, such as with raw food. Birds, turtles, seals, whales, and fish often ingest or become entangled in the remnants of plastic bags in Latin America, one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. Along Panama's coast, it is common to see plastic waste littering beaches, especially near populated areas. Up next, sports. Bonfrejo blasts Super Eagles over poor AFCON outing. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Super Eagles former coach John Bonfrey has blasted Super Eagles for their lack of tactics and cohesion at the 2019 AFCON. The Eagles lost to eventual champions Algeria in the semi-final, but went on to defeat Tunisia to pick up the bronze medal. Bonfrey, who guided Nigeria's dream team to an unbelievable gold medal triumph at the Atlanta 96 Olympic Games, believes the Super Eagles could have performed better. The Super Eagles former coach, who also won the Africa Cup of Nations silver medal with the team in 2000, was quick to admit that Algeria deserved to win the AFCON 2019 title. Hervé Renard is done with Morocco. The French coach of the Moroccan national football team announced his resignation on Sunday following his team's elimination in AFCON round of 16. Hervé Renard's squad lost to Benin after a shock penalty. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.